Thank you so much for doing this, Coach Shaw. You've obviously known Kobe for a very long time. Let's start at the beginning. So the first time you met Kobe was in Italy.
Yes.
You were playing against his father. Tell me what your first impression of him was.
Who is this kid that's running around through our layup line and just challenging everybody to play one-on-one or to play horse? I think he was probably 11 years old at the time. It was 1989. And, when you play over there, each team has their quota of 2 foreign players. So usually, most of the teams had 2 American players. And so when you played against a team, especially I was in Rome, when his father's team would come to Rome, the whole family would come because, we were a big city. The city that his father played in, Reggio Emilia, was a smaller town. So we had like the big McDonald's in Rome, which was a big deal, and the families would come and, be able to do a lot of things that they couldn't do in the smaller towns. So I got to develop a relationship with him, his sisters, and his parents.
Did Kobe actually challenge you to a game of one-on-one?
Yeah, so the story grew and grew and grew. Now, my recollection isn't what his supposedly was, but by the time I joined him on the Lakers in the 99-2000 season, it went from us playing a game of horse to him beating me in a one-on-one when he was 11 years old. I was, a 23-year-old grown man. So,
would he tell the story to your guys' teammates himself?
He told the story to everybody, to me and everybody, and I just remember one day, I think when we reached the finals that first year, 99-2000 season in LA, a bunch of reporters came around my locker and were asking me, "Is it true?" And I'm like, "What are you guys talking about?" And they told me the story, and I looked over at his locker and he was just laughing, and I said, "Think about it. I was 22, 23 years old. He was 11. So you really think that an 11-year-old can beat a 23-year-old who's playing professional basketball in a one-on-one?" And so, like I said, every time the story came back to me, it just grew and grew and grew.
He probably answered yeah to that, huh?
Well, he did. He did for sure. He said that we bet a pizza on the game. So I don't recall it happening that way, but it's all good.
So next time you saw him was when you're in the NBA and you're playing Philly, right?
No, actually, I saw him before that. It was I was playing for the Orlando Magic, and we were going to the final. We were in the playoffs. I believe it was 95 or 96, 95. And his father brought him to one of our playoff games because he really looked up to Penny Hardaway at that time. And this was the first time that I had seen him since he was 11. I think he was a junior in high school at this point. He was about the same height as me. And, so I hugged him. I said, "Man, I can't believe how much you've grown." He said, "Yeah, just wait one more year and then I'm going to be playing against you in the NBA." And at that time, there weren't a lot of guys that were starting to come straight out of high school to the NBA yet. And so I just kind of laughed and was like, "Yeah, right." I said, "He's really, really ambitious, And then it was a year later, I saw his press conference that he was foregoing college, going to enter the NBA draft. And I just remember going, man, I remember he told me that last year. As a matter of fact, he even told me he was thinking about foregoing his senior year of high school and jumping straight from the 11th grade straight to the NBA. And I was like, this kid is crazy. But to my surprise, after his senior year of high school, he made the jump. And so I played against him his first year or two. He didn't play a whole lot for the Lakers, but and then I joined the team in 99-2000 season. We became teammates.
What was it like playing alongside him during those early years?
It was a lot of fun at times, and at times it was not a lot of fun, because you got to think, here's this kid who Jerry West um, basically traded the Lakers starting center Vlade Divac for, and brought him in, recognized his talent, obviously, um, and he just, I would say most people early on thought he was just really selfish on the basketball court. He was only trying to, score. He was only concerned about himself. And so, when I say it wasn't so much fun all the time, it was kind of dealing with that. But what I didn't take into consideration, and I think most of us didn't take into consideration at that time, was that he was underage and he couldn't do a lot of things that us as teammates could do, after game, go get a beer or go to a club or whatever the case may have been. And so being surrounded by grown men, I think he was misinterpreted a lot because he kind of kept to himself. And whereas we may have perceived him early on as being kind of, isolating himself or being kind of standoffish, if I put myself in that position and I couldn't do the things that, my teammates as grown men could do, it would kind of be tough. But I think that that's what also made him so great, because during those times when he couldn't be with us doing the things that we were doing, he was studying the game. And getting his mind right, and in terms of that. And so, but I'll say this: when you got out there on the court with him, there was no one else, before him that you would want to go to battle with, because of his mentality and the way that he attacked and approached the game. And obviously that culminated in 3 championships with me as a teammate of his. And then another two championships with me as a coach on the staff after I retired. And so we've had some great moments. I played with number 8. I coached number 24, Kobe. I've seen his transformation from that little boy in Italy at 11 years old all the way through to being a husband and being a father, and and even his role his growth as a leader, really turning into a leader, and starting to trust his teammates and opening up a lot more than what he did when I was his teammate at number 8. So I got to see pretty much every side of him, and that's what I'm blessed about. Even though he's not here, having spent the time that I was able to spend with him was a blessing. And it brings a smile to my face, because when someone's not here anymore, all you have is the memories that you were able to make with them while they were here. And so that's what keeps me going and what keeps me smiling anytime his name comes up or his picture or anything like that.
I want to go back to something you said that I found really interesting. So do you think Kobe entering the league so young, playing with older guys, kind of helped him develop his famous chip on his shoulder and his work ethic that obviously became so famous and inspirational to so many people around the league?
I think that he already naturally had that himself. He had that chip on his shoulder. But I think that it did help him. He took advantage of the fact that he could pick the brains of people that he really respected in terms of how they approached the game, and in terms of being a student of the game, and then just coming from high school, playing against men that physically were more mature, were stronger, helped him gauge the physicality and the speed of the game, and helped prepare him for that journey that he was embarking on. And so that's where there's a correlation to me being the coach of this Ignite team, and seeing just certain things in certain guys. Not everybody's built to be how Kobe was, and like I said, he already had that chip on his shoulder, but I think that, like you said, he was able to benefit in ways from playing against older guys, and being in that type of setting, just like our young guys here with the Ignite. with the veterans that we have on our team and the guys that we're going to be playing against in the bubble, I think that'll help them tremendously as well.
Everybody has their favorite Kobe story, their story that embodied his competitiveness or, his Mamba mentality spirit. What's the story for you that most embodied that?
There's a couple, but I think that one year we used to have training camp in Hawaii every other year. And then we started doing it in Santa Barbara, where I went to college. And one year we were in Santa Barbara. The hotel that we stayed at, the Bacara, was right on a bluff above the beach. And everybody who knows me knows I'm a fisherman. I love to fish. And so when I was in school there, the Bacara wasn't there. The hotel wasn't there. But it was the area that I used to come down and fish at all the time. So the night before, I was at the hotel. We were actually, we were on the patio. He was smoking a cigar. And I said to him, hey, I'm gonna get up tomorrow morning at 6:30 in the morning and go fishing on the beach. I got a pole for you, come down, let's catch some fish before we go to practice. And so he said, okay, call me in the morning, whatever. So I called him that morning. He didn't end up coming. So I went down on the beach and I was catching sharks and stingrays, small leopard sharks and stingrays. And I would take a picture of them and then, throw them back in the water. So I text him a picture of a leopard shark that I had caught and a stingray. And he called me back immediately. And I said, see what you missed out on? If you would have came down here this morning. So he just goes, what did you do with them? And I said, well, I just took a picture of them, took them off the hook, and then let them back in the water. And he said, why'd you do that? And I was like, well, what was I supposed to do? And he said, you were supposed to kill them. And I said, why? And he said, because they got caught. And that's what they do. That's what they get, for getting caught. And that's a perfect, kind of segue into like what, they talk about the Mamba mentality. Like there's no apologizing for what you are, right? A Mamba is Black Mamba is the second deadliest animal or mammal or whatever in the world. And there's no need for a poisonous, venomous, dangerous snake like that to apologize for what it is. That's just what it is. And so Kobe was that same way in terms of his mentality on the court, whether you were playing checkers with him, trying to recite lyrics in a rap song, he's gonna have that mentality and that approach stayed with him after he transitioned out of basketball, when he started coaching his daughter's team, to when he was doing video animation projects for his Kobe Inc. company, writing children's books and things of that nature. He was always in that attack mode, whatever it was that he had interest in.
Now you guys won 3 championships together during your playing days. What was it like being in between Kobe and Shaq during that time? And, there's some famous stories out there of you literally having to nearly break up a fight between them after Kobe called Shaq lazy. What was that time like? And what was that moment like in the locker room when you literally got in between them?
Well, that was, it was kind of every day. You take two, Shaq is an alpha dog, Kobe is an alpha dog. And, there was a lot of instances. The one that you're talking about in particular was Kobe and Shaq. Phil used to tell Shaq, because he used to take such a pounding every night. In the off season, he would say, just relax, don't do anything, and we'll use the beginning of the season to get yourself in shape. As we, start to make our way towards the playoffs. Kobe was relentless in the off season and worked his tail off, and he would come back and Shaq would be a little heavy, and Kobe would be pissed off because he was like, I worked that hard. Just imagine what you could do if you worked as hard as I did. And so they started kind of sniping at each other through the media, and Phil Jackson and Mitch Kupchak called them together and said, that's enough going back and forth through the media. If anybody says anything about the other person, we're going to fine you, whatever the maximum fine that we can do for conduct detrimental to the team. And right after that meeting, Kobe went on and did an interview with, I think it was Jim Gray at NBC at that time, and called Shaq fat and out of shape or something to that effect. And I had actually just retired, and I was home in Oakland, and I get a call from Devin George first, and he said, "Hey, Kobe said something about Shaq after the meeting when they told him not to say anything, and Shaq is pissed, and he said he's gonna beat Kobe's ass tomorrow, and you're the only one who can stop it from happening. So kiss the wife and the kids and jump on the plane and get down here for practice tomorrow morning." And so I just kind of laughed, didn't make a big deal of it. And then I got a call from Phil Jackson basically saying the same thing. So I jumped on a plane at 7:00 flight that next morning, got into LAX at 8:15, took a cab to the practice facility. And as I pulled up to the players' parking lot, Shaq was already waiting outside his car. So he looked at me, he said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, I'm here to talk to you and talk to Kobe. It ain't nothing that you could say that's gonna get in the way of this ass whooping that I'm gonna give him. And I said, "Well, look, man, just give me a chance to talk to both of you, whatever." I said, "Go inside, go in the film room, and when he gets here, I'll talk to him, and then I'll bring him in." So his security guy was able to kind of calm him down, get him into the film room. Kobe pulled up a little bit later. He said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Well, big fella's pissed off at you for what you said yesterday. And I don't want you to walk in and get blindsided," but he said he was going to whoop your ass. And he said, "Oh, I'm scared." And I said, "Nah, I think this time you really should be scared." I said, I haven't seen him like this before." So then I thought about it, and I was like, if Shaq tries to really go after Kobe, I can't hold him back. I'm not big and strong enough to keep him off of him. So I got that was the year that Karl Malone and Gary Payton were on the team. So I got Karl Malone, and I got Gary Payton and Horace Grant, and we all went into a room, and Kobe and Shaq sat on opposite ends. And I was kind of the, what would you call it? The host of the show, I guess. And let them air out, what their problems were with each other. And, Shaq said what he said, Kobe said how he felt and what he said. And then, basically just got them to understand, like, look, Karl Malone came here, Gary Payton came here to try to win a championship with you two. And this is a distraction taken away from, from everything that's happening. So for the sake of that, if nothing else, get along for what they came here and what they sacrificed to join you guys and what have you. And there were some misunderstandings why they were kind of mad at each other, but when it was all said and done, it ended up being peaceful. And I was thankful for that, because I wasn't, it did get to a point where they were finger pointing and kind of in each other's face. And so I was in the middle of that. And so it could have gone the other way, but gratefully it did.
I'm curious, as an older guy on the team and somebody who Kobe had known for much of his life, what were the biggest ways in which you helped him mature over those years? And then also, what would you say is the biggest thing that you learned from him?
I'll start out with that one. The biggest thing that I learned from him is that when you really, really want to be the best at something, there's no shortcut to it. You have to put in the time. Like, before you become a master at something, it takes 10,000 hours or something for you to have, a repetition of doing something before you can master that particular craft or skill or whatever it is. And so in his approach to everything that he did, having that mindset and seeing his work ethic and how he did everything game speed.
What did it mean to you that he wanted you to take over as coach?
It meant a lot, actually. At that time, and like I said, like we didn't always see eye to eye and get along, but neither did him and Phil Jackson. And I think that, like I said, I think he respected the fact that I always was honest with him. I think he respected my knowledge of the game, my basketball IQ, having played with him as a teammate, and then obviously, coaching. A lot of times in practice, Phil Jackson would give one team to one assistant coach and another team to another when we were scrimmage, and he would just kind of, watch. And so when I would diagram plays and do things of that nature, or we would just talk about basketball, I think he respected my knowledge of the game. And so when he came out and kind of publicly endorsed me to take over when everybody knew Phil was retiring, I at that time thought, well, wow, if it's coming from him, then I'm in a pretty good position to take over. But there was a lot of things going on at that time. Dr. Buss's health was starting to decline. He turned the team over to his son, Jimmy Buss. Jimmy wasn't a big fan of Phil Jackson's ever. And I was considered a Phil Jackson disciple, I guess. And so he decided to, go with Mike Brown. And so the rest is history.
When you transitioned from player to coach, did you see Kobe through different eyes? And throughout your years as both a player alongside him and a coach of him, what was the moment that kind of impressed you the most?
I think that, I saw a different Kobe from being his teammate to coaching him. His growth, like I said, his growth and maturity. Because like I said, early on, when I first started playing with him, he couldn't do a lot of things that we could do. And I think that was a blessing and a curse in the way that, like I said, that it made everybody think that he was standoffish because he kind of kept to himself, but a blessing in that it allowed him to kind of, from a distance be able to analyze and see study the game more and kind of pick people apart, in order for him to elevate his game to where he needed it to get to. And like I said, just seeing him from that little boy to a grown man, and from a single man to a husband to a father of all girls, and how that kind of softened him up in a way. So I mean that's the biggest difference I would say that I saw, just his whole transformation.
So in all of those years as both, playing alongside him and coaching him, did you ever see him beat anybody, or did you ever see anybody beat him in a game of one-on-one?
No. Not in a one-on-one. When I talked about pecking order earlier, every time we got a new player on the team that kind of played his position or was maybe the guy on another team, he would always challenge him to a one-on-one because he wanted to establish the pecking order. For instance, our second championship in 2001, J.R. Ryder came to our team, right? And J.R. Ryder had been the star of the teams that he had been on in Portland and Atlanta and Minnesota, and actually had great games against Kobe when he was on those other teams. And then now he joins our team. And so I remember one day in practice, JR scored on him a couple times and was talking some stuff to him. And then Kobe said, when practice is over, me and you one-on-one right here on this little side court. So we were kind of all laughing and joking. It was Horace Grant and Ron Harper and Shaq and myself. And we were saying, be careful what you ask for, because we had seen this before, right? So they get on the side court. They must have played 5 games, and Kobe just absolutely destroyed JR. And so even Phil Jackson, like, he sat on the side on one of those big exercise balls, and we were just watching. And so finally, after, like I said, Kobe just kind of destroyed him, we were all on the sideline laughing, saying, you asked for it, you got it. And JR got so mad, he ran over to the sideline and cussed us all out and he was like, I'll beat all y'all asses. Somebody stand up and say something. He wanted to challenge us to deflect what had just happened to him, on that court. And so,
all right. I remember the question that got away from me earlier.
Okay.
What was the moment throughout all of your time with Kobe that impressed you the most?
Yeah. Okay. So there were a couple. Well, I guess they go hand in hand. We were playing the Dallas Mavericks. I can't even remember what year it was now, but at the end of the third quarter, Kobe had 62 and the Dallas Mavericks had 61. And we were up, I think 30 or 33 points, something like that. And it was a timeout, and it was in between the third and fourth quarter, and Phil Jackson asked me to go ask Kobe if he wanted to start out the fourth quarter, and see if he, to try and get 70 points. And so I walked over out of the coach's huddle and asked him, and he looked up at the scoreboard, and we were up, like I said, 30 or whatever. And he said, nah, I'll get it another time, when we really need it. So I got kind of pissed off. I was like, look, man, not too many people can say that they scored 70 points against another team. You got a chance to score 70. Man, you got to play. He was like, he looked at the scoreboard again. Nah, we're up 30. We don't need it right now. So I'll do it another time. So I went back over the field. I said, he doesn't want to go back in. Well, about 3 or 4 weeks later, we're playing Toronto in LA, and they're beating us for the majority of the game. And you just see the points piling up. And, when it's all said and done, he scores 81 points. And the first thing that came to my mind was, he told me 3 weeks ago when we really needed it that he was gonna do it, and he followed through on that, and and he did. And not only did he score 70, he scored 81. And I still have the stat sheet. I have the DVD of that game and the stat sheet from that game, because obviously Wilt Chamberlain scored 100 points or whatever in the game, but I was like, you'll never see this happen again. Somebody scored 81 points, and so I still have that stat sheet in my office to this day.
One thing that you and Kobe both share in common was a passion for helping younger guys, developing younger players. In your current role, how has your relationship with Kobe influenced your coaching approach?
It resonates, and it helps me. It aids me to this day, because especially this young group of players, this generation of players, grew up on Kobe, right? And so they all love his shoes for one. They all wear the Kobe's. I think the Kobe shoe for Nike has been the most popular or most worn shoe by NBA players for years now. But being able to use him as an example, it gets their attention, right? Because they know that I played with him. They know that I coached him. They know that I played against him. And all the 5 championships that he has, I have. 3 as his teammate, 2 as a coach. And so they're always full of questions about, what was he like? What was his work ethic like? And this, that, and the other. So he's helping out in ways. Obviously he's not here now, but he's still helping me to grab the attention of these guys. And, I say stuff like, if somebody's trying to cut corners or try to take a shortcut from doing something, I say, look, Kobe never took a shortcut. He didn't cut corners when it came to this, because at the end of the day, he knew that the work that we always say, when you pay your dues pay you back. And that was something that he staunchly believed in, you know. And so I can use those lessons, those sayings, those examples from that I've saw over and over again with him to grab their attention and reel them back in, and get them on point. You know, I tell people all the time, it's not an accident that he was as good as he was. He made himself that by putting in the work. You know, I've been doing a lot of interviews this week as we get closer to January 26th. And there's been people that are like, you know, and even old teammates and stuff that can't look at pictures or video or what footage of him. And I always just say, you know, when I have a big cardboard cut life size cardboard cutout of him in my garage. So when I pull into the garage every night, he's staring at me when I pull in. And it just makes me smile because I think about all the things that, you know, we've done, that we had gotten to do over the years and accomplished together. And so I feel blessed to have had him and made the memories with him while he was still here. And that's what keeps me going and what makes me smile and love to talk about, you know, my time with him. So
when did you get that cardboard cutout?
I got it when I went back to coach the Lakers with Luke Walton in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
So it was right after, maybe it was right before his last game. It was up in the Laker office, and one of the ladies that worked up there had a couple of them in her office from some promotion that was done, and I asked her, could I have one? And I actually, I took it. I walked through the building with it. I went down, put it in my truck, and drove it home, and so it made it to my. I have it in my garage, and I have a cutout of myself from my Orlando Magic days. So I have us kind of standing right next to each other in the garage.
Wow, that's really beautiful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and everything you just shared with us right now, for being so open. I can't thank you enough.
All good. All good.